Paul Sporer joins us now. A little transition into baseball. Baseball, this just in, special numbers game investigation reveals that the Major League Baseball season begins on Thursday. Kelley, look into that. Would you check into that? That's
You
correct.
gotta be kidding me.
Let's double check our work. Paul Sporer joins us from Fangraphs at Sporer on Twitter, Sporer. How you doing, Paulie?
I'm well, Gill. How are you?
Good. What's your excitement meter pinning at right now?
Oh man, it's hitting 11 at least, Spinal Tap style here.
Spinal Tap, baby. Our amps go to 11. Okay, let's do this. Well, first of all, real quick before because I want to get division by division thoughts here from you. Mm-hmm. But real quick, because you've been on before, but I just want to refresh this. A lot of people I know who aren't necessarily, who are bettors who wouldn't necessarily be that excited for the beginning of a baseball season are super pumped because they're anxious to see how the rule changes will manifest and whether it sort of gives them a betting angle. And I think every bettor worth their salt ought to have that attitude too. You believe the biggest impact of the rules, at least to begin with, and we're talking about bigger bases, shift limitations, must have two infielders on each side of second base. The pitch clock, 15 seconds when bases are empty, 20 seconds when runners are on. Batters also got to be in place, 8-second mark. Pickoffs, pitchers limited to 2 disengagements per plate appearance. All of this designed to change a home run, walk, strikeout league or game into promoting singles and doubles and stolen bases and more offense. What do you think is the biggest single thing that we may not have anticipated here that will happen?
I mean, the clock for sure, I think, is going to change the way a lot of pitchers work. And that we already know that the more time you take in between pitches, the faster that you can throw on average. It's like regenerating your health, like standing still in a video game type of deal is how I compare it. And I think that's going to have the biggest effect on relievers. And I think you're in lockstep with me there that we're going to see a lot more late inning runs and games can start to change a bit more there. Whereas, you got all these 100-mile-an-hour guys coming out, locking down the game in the 6th inning. Maybe we're going to have a lot more turnover and lead changes late in games because I think relievers are going to be most affected by the pitch clock.
A lot of lead changes late in games. I agree with you about the reliever point. But you know what? I said it to Josh Towers, who, unlike you and I, played the game at the highest level.
He did a little something.
He did a little something, right? And I said to him, I think that's the biggest thing, right? I used the Aroldis Chapman take a lap around the mound example. Yeah. And he was like, no, I think it's going to help batters. I mean, I think it's going to help pitchers, he said. Like, he really believes the opposite. Yeah. I think
it just, bottom line is, not to dispute a major leaguer, who was out there doing the thing, it's going to be case by case. There's no way it's going to help Pedro Baez. There's no way it's going to help Aroldis Chapman. These guys who are slow, that don't adjust, they will not be helped. Other guys probably will, though. I can see what he's saying in terms of finding in the rhythm, getting going. We've heard some guys talk about it. The reason I specify relievers, though, is because they are prone to taking longer. I think some starters will get helped by it. So maybe there's some lower scoring early in games, and then it shifts to later in games as an overall trend. But I really do think a lot more relievers are going to be hurt by it. Starters I can definitely see. And Towers was a starter, so maybe he's focused more on how the starters are going to be impacted. I cannot agree that relievers are going to be helped by it. Some might, but I think more will be hurt by it than not as far as relievers. I'm
so with you, and I think that will create a lot of in-game betting opportunities that might otherwise not have existed in previous seasons. But as you also quipped before, you're like, if this was prime Mark Burley, some guys wouldn't even notice it, right? The pitch clock.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, I'm sure he would be like, man, I would have thrived in this. I would have no issues converting to this. And some guys, again, will probably find themselves in a rhythm where they're like, hey, this is actually way better. I used to take too long. But others are going to struggle. And like I said, not to keep beating the dead horse here, but the relievers are the ones I think are going to have the biggest negative impact.
All right, let's go division by division. And you're kind enough to do a double header with me today with the Megapod coming up. So thank you for that. I cannot wait for that.
No problem.
Let's go American League East. I always, for some reason, you grow up with whatever your local newspaper. That's exactly right. So I grew up in the Washington Post, and because we were Orioles fans, generation between the Senators and the Nationals, we're like it's AL East, AL Central, AL West, then we go NL. It's exactly like that. So let's start with the AL East, where, of course, the Yankees rule the roost, or at least are predicted every year to rule the roost, but there's always contenders, the Rays being chief among them. Each and every year perennially, but there's Blue Jays thoughts as well this year from a lot of folks. And so if you look at the current division odds, and I'll take them from DraftKings, in the American League East. The Yankees are plus 130. The Jays are 2-1. The Rays are plus 340. Then you have the Red Sox at 15-1 and the Orioles at 25-1. Is there a bet there?
I think maybe the Rays. That's a team I consistently like. Obviously, everyone knows them these days, but you still look at the talent, and they do it with the no names, so they still tend to get pretty good odds, even though they are a consistent contender. Love what the Yankees are doing, though, calling up Volpe, and I did not think he had a path to get there because of all their middle infield clutter, so to speak. Because with IKF on the team and DJ LeMahieu and Gleyber Torres, I was like, I don't know how he's going to get there. Peraza's already on the 40-man. He won the job. They actually stuck to their word that it was a competition, and he won the job. I think he is the best guy for the job as far as hitting talent. I'm not sure about the defensive piece. Their rotation has taken a big hit, though. They got a guy named Johnny Brito in there. Do you know if that's a real guy? I'm not 100% sure. I kind of like Clark Schmidt. But he's now like they're 2 or 3. So it didn't take long for their rotation to get absolutely hit, and that scares me a little bit for the Yankees.
Okay, so but no bet I'm hearing in this division.
Not for them. For the Rays, is who
for the Rays. You would take a flyer on the Rays here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, all right, Rays. We'll do the other 5 divisions as well. And by the way, Paul, just as a rule, if you don't know if they're a real person in baseball, I probably don't know if they're a real person in baseball. We'll do the other 2 divisions in the American League and all 3 in the National League. Paul Sporer, it's a numbers game at Visa, the Sports Betting Network. Paul Sporer, kind enough to join us here for a second segment. Let's go AL Central, Paulie. Paulie's doing a doubleheader with me today. I love it. AL Central, where your Tigers reside. Yet there they are with the Royals in their perennial positions, 30-1 to win that division. It is a 3-headed monster, as it has been in recent history. Guardians, the short shot, plus 130. Twinkies, plus 215. And the White Sox, who have been the en vogue club here in recent seasons prior to the season beginning, at plus 250. What do you like here?
I'm going back to the White Sox. I love the talent. Never was a fan of TLR being re-signed there, or brought in there, I should say. I didn't think that was a good fit. Kind of feel like the game's passed him by. Interesting to see what Pedro Griffin can do this year, but I still think there's just a ton of talent. Love what the Guardians did last year, and I'm not exactly thinking that they're going to fall apart, but they're probably going to be some regression there. They got a lot of positive seasons from guys, probably going to smooth back out a little bit. I think the White Sox have an opportunity to jump up there.
Can we get a glossary for Sporer, by the way? We've got IKF with Isaiah Kiner Falefa. We've got a TLR now with Tony La Russa. It's an accompanying glossary for Paulie. Okay, American League West, where, no surprise, the Astros are the favorite, minus 175.
Shocking.
But then you have the Mariners at plus 320. The Angels, with arguably the 2 best players on the planet, plus 750.
Not even arguably.
Not even arguably. You're probably right, in Trout and Ohtani. Rangers, who I expect a bump from this year, plus 850. And then one of these teams is not like the other, Paul. The Athletics are 250-1.
The poor Athletics there. It's really tough. Yeah, Astros I think are pretty good, but they're experiencing some issues. Obviously Altuve going down. They lost Justin Verlander. I think they're still a good team. I understand why they're the favorite, but I'm kind of looking at some of the other teams in there, going back to the Angels because I don't learn. I like to touch the hot stove. It feels good on my skin, and so I'm doing it again.
Yeah.
I do worry a bit about the bullpen, but a bullpen can be built on the fly. We've seen it time and time again with teams. I really think the rotation is quite strong for the first time in a while with them. The lineup is very good. Even if somebody like Anthony Rendon doesn't stay healthy, they've got a strong, deep lineup. Taylor Ward, Trout, Ohtani, Renfroe coming in, Drury coming in. So I'm going back to the well with the Angels. I like the Rangers too, and I might even be interested in like a half unit flyer if they somehow rise up to win the division. But I like them more for like an over-under on their wins total because that is an intriguing ball club. I like what the Rangers are doing long-term for sure.
It's the one season win total I played. Rangers over. For all kinds of reasons that go back to Pythagorean theorem and base runs and obviously their acquisitions. National League. The Braves are plus 110. The Mets, who will not have Edwin Diaz this year, plus 175. The Phillies, plus 370. Then you'd have the Marlins at 22-1 and the poor Nats, 250-1.
Yeah.
Braves, Mets, Phillies. Which I assume you're not going Marlins, but maybe I shouldn't assume that. Which way are you going here?
I mean, I'll probably just go with the Mets there. I know that they took the big hit with Edwin, but they're not the favorite right now, so I'll take the little extra number there. I like the Braves. I think they're good. I'm not super interested in making a play in this division generally,
Okay.
but if I'm going to go anywhere, it would be with the Mets. I still think they have tons of talent. They're very committed, so I think they could go out and get like a David Bednar or Scott Barlow from one of the lower tier teams, take their closer, fill in. But I think they're going to stay competitive, and obviously they have just gobs of talent, as do the Braves. But I just don't want to take a favorite in a division race like
yeah,
that.
and it should be pointed out. Here we are. It's a 162 game schedule. Can you catch everything perfectly at its low, at its nadir, and then make a bet? Again, I talk about the year the Dodgers lost in the World Series to the Astros. Somehow I timed it perfectly when they were 16, 26-1. Got them at 25-1. It didn't quite get there, but there's so many opportunities to make bets during the season. Now, there are cases where if you wait, the train might leave the station and you'll never have a chance to make the bet if some team just flies out of the gates that you like. But but making a bet now in a division like that just doesn't seem like a proper thing to do in any respect. National League Central, maybe the same can be said here. The Cardinals are minus 125, Brewers plus 175, and the Cubbies are plus 650. The Pirates and the Reds bringing up the rear.
Yeah, I think the Cubs are doing some interesting things. And again, maybe you go for like a half unit in a Rangers type style. I like the Rangers better, but it's that same sort of vibe where I don't love it, but I could see it if you're really hot on the Cubs. Brewers, if I'm making a play here, same kind of situation I was talking about with the Mets in the East. I don't necessarily just want to play a favorite, and the Cardinals are obviously a major favorite there, whereas the Braves at least had plus money. I like the Brewers. They got two aces. Freddie Peralta is still very good. They have a decent lineup, but I'm probably not locking up any money here with the Brewers. I'd rather just play things in season as opposed to locking up that money for 6 months. You and I have talked about that before.
Yeah, and so here's the West of the National League, where the Dodgers are minus 125 and the Padres are plus 135. Not much separation, really, relatively speaking. Giants are 10-1, D-backs 55-1, Rockies 180-1. You liked the Diamondbacks as you did the Angels with the season win total over. Do you like them as a flyer here?
Yeah, I would take the flyer because I do think if everything really came together, they could make some big noise. Again, you're talking more half unit there. You're not putting all your bankroll on that. You want to play them in season, find some things like you said, try to find that perfect moment. But I like this team. I really do. I think the Baby Snakes, their lineup is really sharp. Their pitching starting to come together. I don't love that they signed Zach Davies to kind of cut off one of their big trio of Ryan Nelson, Brandon Pfaadt, and Dre Jameson. I like all three of those guys. They should have two of them in the rotation right now, but because they re-signed Davies and they still have Bumgarner's corpse, only one made it with Nelson, but I think they have pitching reinforcements. Gallen and Kelley at the top is pretty nice too. Lineup is awesome. Bullpen leaves some questions, which can always be scary. But like I said, you can build that on the fly. Guys can rise up. I mean, Dre Jameson's going to be in the bullpen to start, and maybe they just say, you know what, you're going to be a high leverage guy. Maybe he takes over the closer's role, or he's the fireman. So they've got some pitching there that can kind of make up for the bullpen deficiencies right now. I do like them. As far as the favorites, I mean, I think the Padres should maybe be the favorite. So the fact that they're not gives me a little bit of intrigue on them for the division as well. I think the Dodgers, they don't have their Avengers lineup. It's still solid. They still have superstar talent without a doubt, but it gets pretty dry there at the back end of that lineup for the first time in a long time with them. And the rotation isn't as deep. And I do think that there's going to be some concerns with them with the shift being regulated. A lot of those guys take advantage of the shift quite a bit with their contact management. Guys like Gonsolin and Julio Urias. I think Urias will still be very good. Gonsolin, I have some concerns about his health and his talent. Kershaw, you're getting like $120. I don't know that we're getting a full season out of Dustin May yet. I root for Thor, but I'm also honest about where his skills are. And Ryan Pepio got the fifth starter's role. Interesting talent, but really more of a reliever. He has 40 grade command at best on the 2080 scale, which is below average. So I think the Dodgers are a little bit flawed this year. I would go Padres there and then Diamondbacks for my flyer.
But if I'm reading, your favorite one of all those is the Angels in the AL West?
Yes, Gill.
Embarrassed as he is. He's his favorite of all of them.
I'll just ride with Ohtani and Trout and just piss away all my money on them.
Well, we'll see. This could be the year, Paulie. Better be the year.
Maybe.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.